welcome to our session and welcome to Demolition Day, because this session will be about helping those audiences who have yet to come into the concert hall and help them fall in love with classical music. So today we are breaking down some barriers for these new audiences with some tools and help them, even if it's difficult buying a ticket or it's difficult having a classical concert experience, or even afterwards, after the experience and getting back into the next concert.
We are both from RasmussenNordic. It's a small advising and research company, and we work with strategy and innovation within audience development. And we have done a lot of research in this field with especially potential audiences. And today we're going to show you some of our work. We have heard a lot of people here over the last couple of days asking, how can we address this? How can we work with these audiences? And we hope that we can give some of the answers today.
Yeah, we will. You have a couple of cards on your seat, not all the way up because we ran out of cards. But when you see these slides, you can answer the question with your cards. So we would like to just see from you audiences today how difficult you feel it is to attract new audiences and to keep them coming back for more. And the red card is very hard and the green is easy. I see no green cards. A lot of yellow and some red. Yeah.
Right. All right.
That's the general picture we get to when we talk to orchestras and ensembles.
I was hoping to see a bit of green cards, I must admit. Now, as I said before, we are from Denmark, this little spot in the Nordic countries, in the bottom of the Nordic countries. And over the last, I would say 4 or 5 years, we have been working with a project called the Tutti project. It's a project that is co-developed with the Danish organization for orchestras, and the director is here today, Asbjørn Keiding. Would you wave your hand? Yes, I'm here. And please ask him as well about the project. We started some years ago, and today in the Tutti project there are 10 symphony orchestras and ensembles who have joined this program to learn more about audience development and how to attract the audiences in new ways.
Yeah, and the initial prompt to why we wanted this project is because we see a lot of audiences stop coming, or we aren't getting new audiences. So this was supposed to be the solution to that challenge.
It's called a soft bleeding. The number of audiences is going slightly down year by year. And I think it's over the last 20 years, or over the last 10 years or so, it's been like 20% less audiences for classical concerts. Well, when we started this, we actually didn't have that much data about how Danish audiences perceived the experience of going to a classical concert. And we actually didn't know whether the orchestras themselves were working with audience development. So we started to look into that in a research project, and it showed that most of the orchestras were, to say it fairly, a bit confused about what is audience development and how can we approach it. So that was our first initial research. And then we looked into how the Danes actually think about how they perceive going to a classical concert. And a lot of people actually like classical music. So we divided them a bit and said, if you think that classical music is important, and you go to a concert, how many percent over 18 years of age would do that? And there was also some people who said, we don't need classical music, it shouldn't be there, or it shouldn't be funded by government or funds or anything else. But what we found is this amazing number, 42%, because 42% of all grown-ups like classical music. They just didn't go into a concert room. They were streaming classical music. They heard it on their games or films, and they thought that it was an important cultural experience, but they didn't go in there. So the Tutti project started with this wonderful potential number that we would like to have these 42% to come into the concert halls or wherever you perform your music. And then we started to look in, who are they? And what might motivate them to join the classical music?
And we wanted to look into classical music potential audiences in a couple of different ways. So we checked age and all of these things, but one of the things that we really wanted to look at was how are the potential audiences segments divided by what motivates them to come. So we tested using the culture segment, which is a British segmentation, and there are 8 different segments in this kind of test. But we found that these 4 audiences who are motivated to go to a concert for different reasons were the most likely to want to go to a classical concert. So those are the ones we should start with in our potential audiences. And we have 4. This is stimulation. Let's see here. We have a pointer, don't we? No. That one. Stimulation is the least likely of the 4 to go, but they are very interesting because they really want to be engaged. They are very keen on new things, new experiences, and they consider classical music a new experience because they haven't attended before. So that's why they're interested in classical music. The Let's Do It Together are a very social segment. They go to a concert to have an experience with their friend or their partner or whoever it is they're going with. So it's not the music that draws them, it's the fact that it is a social event for them. And then we have That's Great Quality. And great quality, we know these people because most of us in the sector are these people. They are very, very interested in the arts. They are big consumers of culture and art. And they love it when it's good quality and it's a little bit niche. They love sort of diving deep into the classical music world, if it's that what they are watching for. The last one is what I call a recommendation segment. They are really trying to add culture into their lives to improve their lives because they feel like if you know more culture, then you will be a richer person somehow. And they are all about the popular things, the must-sees, the top 3s, but they don't know what the top 3s are. So in principle, you can tell them it's a top 3 and they will come. Do you have a guess as to which one of these segments were the most tickets likely to purchase tickets in Denmark? The great quality, yeah. You would think that, but it's actually these guys who buy the most tickets. The social ones. But most of our branding and the way we talk about classical music is made for these guys. But these guys are more interested, just in general. They buy more tickets. And that's also because these guys are the organizers. They are the organizers in the family and the friend group, so they are the one that decides what we go to often.
But we also needed another layer because we know that it's difficult for a lot of new people to go into the concert hall. There are a lot of barriers. So we had this kind of segmentation, but we also needed another way of looking at it before we could actually describe how we could work with these barriers. So we also added these 3 segments just to complicate things even more. So we looked into a group called Young Urbans, which are people who are studying in the greater cities in Denmark. And we looked into families because a lot of the Danish orchestras were already making concerts for young urbans. They were, for instance, making film music concerts and so on. And they were also making concerts for children and their families. And then we identified what we call empty nesters. They are basically people like, for instance, myself. Kids have flown from the nest. I feel like a teenager again because I can actually pick whatever kind of experience I want and not have to bring my kids along. And these empty nesters are interesting because it's in a life phase. So they are between 45 and 60, and they are loaded. And they want a whole experience.
And redefining their culture use.
Redefining it. They are very interesting. So we invited across Denmark a lot of people who were interested in classical music, and then we just sent them into the concert halls.
So people who were new, they had never attended a concert before, but they were curious. So that was they had to be curious about classical music to attend the research.
Yeah. And they couldn't pick the concerts for themselves, so they had to decide for themselves what concert they would pick. And then after that, they were interviewed for hours about what happened in the concert hall.
This is why we were working from this idea of testing their entire user journey from the stage of them being out of the market, saying that they haven't really come across an orchestra or an ensemble in sort of an active way, and see what sort of triggers them and how do they consider this before the purchase. How do they go through this loop and saying what kind of barriers do they come across? What are their thoughts? When do they say, no, that's probably wouldn't be for me? And when do they say, yeah, that's good, I want to go there? And then we checked the experience. So during the concert, what were their thoughts? And then we checked whether or not they were coming back. So preferably, we would like them to stay in this beautiful loop of buying more tickets and never leaving our loyalty. But obviously, what we found were that there were a lot of walls just blocking this user journey. And from those walls, we figured out what would be the solution to breaking down these walls. Some of the barriers that you can see here.
We have like what we call the 8 great barriers.
Yeah, in the beginning loop over here.
And they are a bit hard to pass, honestly, for potential audiences.
Yeah. So what we're going to do is we're going to talk about some of the barriers and some of the tools that we created to dissolve these barriers.
We maybe also say that there are a lot of tools in the book, and we only have like 45 minutes. So we will just touch on 6 or 7 of the tools today.
Yeah, show some examples. Because all of these areas are areas that we need tools to help new audiences with. And that's a lot of areas, but we also say when we start using these tools that you have to start with one at a time. You can't solve everything because new audiences do have a lot of barriers. So just one at a time.
So we did a lot of work when we knew all this together with the 10 orchestras who are part of the Tutti program. So it's not just our invention about how you could do. We sat down and we had a lot of workshops together with the orchestras to actually capture their basic questions about audience development and what they could do. So we had a process where we worked together and to kind of identify the most basic questions and then put them into the tools.
The most important thing is that we did it with the orchestras because these tools aren't supposed to reinvent how we do everything. They're just supposed to add little questions that we're forgetting to make to help these audiences. So it was important to us that the orchestras use their language and use their processes to integrate these things. And then I want to introduce you to some of these audiences. We like to use faces instead of statistics to drive our point home. This is Kelvin, and Kelvin was one of the young men that we sent into the concert hall. And Kelvin, he loves music. He spends like 1,000 euros a year going to every kind of different concert. And he was curious about classical music. But Kelvin said, I have seen the posters around town. The older, severe white people with their instruments didn't speak to me. And this is a general barrier that we have seen around branding. So whenever these audiences actually see the brands of the classical music orchestras or ensembles out in the world, that's often their reaction. So this doesn't resonate with me. This probably doesn't feel like a space that was created for someone like me. Is there anyone else like me in that space? The brand doesn't communicate that. And we've been studying this a little bit more in depth later on, because brands in the classical music world is facing this challenge as a community, because often we are all making the same barriers through our brands that Kelvin experiences. And a part of it is that classical music, when you haven't attended a concert before, is considered a little bit difficult, that you can't just buy a ticket and just watch, because there is some sort of threshold or level that feels like you have to come over it in order to be able to join in the fun. So we are enforcing that threshold right now through the brands that we are showing these new audiences, that classical music is high quality and exquisite and all of these wonderful things that we are. But the problem is that it feels like with this severity and this quality that new audiences has to adhere to that standard as well somehow. So they feel like I couldn't enter that space because it is too severe and it is not for relaxed and flawed people like myself. What kind of tools do we need to help Kelvin and many of the others who mentioned these things? The tools that we have been looking into are very centered around the stories that we tell about ourselves, which is the brand promise. We call it the brand promise. And the brand promise is very much about the value that audience experience, not the value that we think we have. And very often brands are focused on orchestras' own perception of themselves and not the perception of the audiences. We also try to differentiate about our own value. So there's a tool for differentiating what is the thing that we think about ourselves and what is the thing that is audience friendly in a brand. And then the next thing is, even if we say that we are very inclusive and diverse, sometimes they can't tell from the brand. So even if you have set it as a value somehow, it doesn't communicate through to these audiences that this is a diverse place where there is room for young people, for example. This is one of the sentences that you can fill out in the toolbook that will help you create this brand promise. And I've had this exercise with some of the Danish orchestras, and it was probably the most difficult thing for them to do, to fill out this sentence. We are testing brands right now. We are creating a brand test to figure out how we can test attractiveness in classical music brands. And even the ones that we are testing with have difficulties pointing out what is it exactly that we want to be measured at as a brand. So this is, in a way, very simple, but it is also very difficult to do. There are also more advanced tools. I think this is the most challenging part of the toolbook that will help you ask, once you've created this brand promise, is it actually audience friendly? And there will be check questions like, what does the brand make the guest feel? And if you can't answer that with your brand promise, then the brand promise is not audience friendly. It looks more complicated than it is, but it is a discussion tool. So it is something that will take a process. So one of the questions that I get when I talk about these things is, if we all do what the audiences want, will we all look the same? If we just adjust to the audience's expectation. And the answer is, to the audiences, we already look the same, many of us. I'm not trying to pick on these orchestras. I could have chosen a lot of other orchestras and still had the same effect that this was given. But the point is, we need to differentiate ourselves. And maybe some of us can still remain these type of brands, But if we want as a sector to give a different picture of classical music, we need to differentiate ourselves to the audiences. So I would love to know how many in this room feel that they have a brand that's audience friendly, or maybe, I would love to see some green. We have some green in the room, yay! Oh, we gotta talk to you afterwards, what you're doing right then.
A single red one up there, I can see. All right. So this was just a very quick glimpse into some of the brand tools. And as Cecilie said, it takes a lot of mind work actually to do this, even though a lot of orchestras has this very strong sense of identity. Now, this is Iris, and she's 52. She is an empty nester, and she would love to go to a classical concert. And she volunteered to be a guest. And we asked her to pick a concert in the neighborhood where she lives. She could choose from a chamber orchestra and from a symphony orchestra. And she said, it's very hard for me because I have no idea whether I will like this or not. So it was a barrier because potential concert goers for classical music don't know composers. They don't know the pieces, and they don't know the style or the vibe or about it. So they can't actually tell the difference whether it's a piece from the 18th or 19th century. That's not what they are about if you are to program for new audiences. So we made a toolbox for programming. And we also know, if you would show the next slide, Cecilie, it's...
I think it's also worth mentioning that the core problem here is that they don't understand our programming, like at all. And if you have a product in any other market sector and they don't understand the product, then you're in trouble.
Yeah. So we worked on this very sensible question together with the orchestras. It was the most scary part of the workshop, I would say, because how can we program in a different way? So this is just to show you the 4 tools that are in the book. About there's some principles is about what is our process about programming, and the criteria can be different things. Should we use data for supporting our choice when we are programming? And then we have developed together the concept compass, which is a compass I will show you in a minute, that is very friendly to new audiences, or you can use it when you're programming. And we have a program assessment tool as well. But let's go into the concept compass. All of these different things that we suggest that you think about when you are doing your programming, other than artistic ways of looking at it, you can see different ideas about the concepts up here. For instance, the soundscape, where does the music take you? Interactive concept, will anything happen while you are in the concert room? Do you have to interact yourself? We know that some of the segments love to be active during a concert, for instance. Is there an event? I remember some of the speakers yesterday about what was the last session yesterday about how can data inform our knowledge about concerts, said that this thing about occasion is very important for people. Is there a special occasion, an event that will happen? I remember one of our interviewees said that he was listening to quite a new piece of music. It was written for accordion, and he said, in just a second, I was on that Blade Runner police car flying over Los Angeles. So he was actually giving us the idea of these soundscapes, because it was much more relevant for him to say, where will the music take me? They will, for instance, take me to another country, to another time. Will I be on a Blade Runner police car, or will I be back in the 15th century wearing some weird clothes or something like that? So the whole idea is that when you are programming, can you think about it in a way that will resonate with the potential audiences, because they have a much easier time picking a concert if they kind of get this experience, I would say, designed for them in a way. So this compass wheel is a way to try to address it when you are making your programs.
Yeah, and the way that we talked about with the Danish orchestras, because it's their needs that we're translating into tools, is that they weren't thinking about these concepts until it reached marketing. And then it's too late to design an experience. So this happens while deciding the repertoire.
So it can be a way for potential audiences to talk about the concert and what was going on there. Now, in the programming part, we suggest that you could bring in data from audiences to support your choices about programming. So it's just a simple question for you or any one of you using data to support your programming. Yes, great. And maybe a little bit, and no, not at all. Oh, it's a mix.
Obviously, some of these tools are useful, but they're even more useful if you know what the audiences want or need. So if you know which one of the concepts is most interesting to certain target groups, then you can create specifically for them these concepts. Then we want to talk about Maimona. And Maimona had this experience of choosing a concert she thought she would like. So she wasn't in doubt which concert she wanted to choose. The thing about Maimona is, as you can see in the quote here, it wasn't made for someone like me. I could tell. So the concert that she attended was a climate concert. It was like a dystopian thing where there was a bit of monologue about a dystopian future where humans had destroyed themselves. And she was, yeah, that's edgy, that's cool. I want to attend that. And then she came into the concert hall, and at the stage, they played beautifully. There was nothing wrong with the music, but there was an old woman reading this dystopian future from papers, and she was reading them. And she was like, why is there an old woman reading very sort of severely and not very engagingly from a piece of paper? Why isn't there a passionate young activist standing on stage telling me something that really matters about climate? So she could feel that even though they made this for new audiences, this concert, it wasn't really made for new audiences. It was still made for the old audiences, in fact, yeah. So Maimona, there's also this thing about, because this is a retention thing. If they get this feeling of you served me an expectation and you didn't deliver, or it felt wrong, I still don't feel like I fit in, then she's not going to come back. So this is also about the fact that my generation and younger people, we live in an era where we are children of the algorithm. So our whole digital life, which we can't underestimate, is an algorithm that is serving who we are all the time. We're already getting the content that is so made for us. So we won't settle for less, not in the concerts either. So what tools do we need to fix this? To help Maimona, we tried creating some tools that focused around designing concerts. So how do we deliver on the things that we did in the concert compass? We decided it was an engaging concert, but how do we deliver on that? And one of the things that we wanted to create was this pre-concert tool, which is very simple, but really helps you think about the specific target audience you chose. How can we deliver on their needs? And then there is a more sort of comprehensive design of the concert that you can move into in a production period. And then we have an inspiration list that is about going from, yeah, that was an okay concert, to I'll never forget that. So those are things that audiences have mentioned, that new audiences mentioned, that they were blown away by. Obviously, we can only choose one tool, so we chose this one today. which should look like something you're already doing, which is defining a concert's target audience and the idea behind the concert. Now, the thing that my Mona needs is for you to be very specific with the target audiences and not try to make it for everyone. Really try to make it for someone. We usually say try to make it for one person. Try to define this person alone and make it for them. And then there is this one called recognition. So the idea you can work on through the concept compass. But recognition is with a programming that is so unfamiliar, with a repertoire that is so unfamiliar, how do we create something recognizable? Because they don't need much. I think we had a concert with the Pink Panther theme. So one of the new audiences chose it simply because it mentioned Pink Panther. That was enough to be recognizable and say, oh yeah, I can listen to a classical concert if there's something about Pink Panther. I remember Pink Panther. It's a children comic, if you don't know, from the 90s. So recognition is a very, very simple question we can ask ourselves when programming. Say, what is it that this audience is supposed to recognize? And it could be the soundscape. So where Paris, I recognize Paris. I can hear a concert that has something to do with Paris. And then there is this one relation, which almost all of your new audiences asked for. Say, oh, you're such a very vast and anonymous crowd. I would love someone to be the face of this concert. I would love to relate to a person, someone that I can look in the eye. And this is not just during the concert, it is before the concert, it is during, and it is after. I want a relation with one person.
And I think that travels across all of the segments for potential concert goers. They really need to see who you are and what you do. They are so interested in instruments and how one practices and what you feel when you are playing the music. How are you together on stage? All of that.
And it can be a different person for each concert. So this is for one concert. So this could be a host, or it could be a musician, or whoever you want it to be. But just having a face on the concert really helps these new audiences. Yeah, I'm going to take Caroline as well. Caroline is such a wonderful woman, and she, I kind of, as a researcher, fell a little bit in love with her because she was so potential audiences. She had a story about herself, which was like, I've always figured I was the kind of person who could enjoy classical music. It's like an idea I have of myself. So she was full on potential. Except she wouldn't have come back after the experience that she had. So it's, again, a retention question here. Caroline says, I left feeling like I had missed something, like I was missing a key to understanding the music I just heard. And sometimes when we talk about the level of communications we need to do about a concert, I often get this little bit of protest from orchestras saying, we don't want to talk down to the audiences. And we don't want to interpret the music for them. It's so personal. They should just go and listen and interpret the music. Please listen to Caroline, because not everyone can do that. She said things like, I'm an adult, but it's been a while since I used my imagination. We don't really cultivate that as adults anymore. So please help me kickstart this imagination. And one of the things that we chose to frame this as is storytelling about concerts. And we can do storytelling with facts about composers and history. But we're talking about storytelling specifically because it is so much more engaging. And it's so much easier to relate to a story than it is to fact. So what tools do we need to become better storytellers? Because that is what the new audiences need from us. It was quite an interesting tool set to create, because when I talk to the orchestras, storytelling as a skill is not a priority. It's not something that we hire people to do in the classical sector in Denmark. So we really wanted to build something that just helps you create those stories in a very easy way. So how do we find what's interesting about a story for these audiences, that they can easier access the music? Because we have this, no, it's not an inkling. We know that listening to classical music can feel a bit strange. It's abstract in a way. It's not like the music we hear in pop songs. There's a chorus that tells exactly how to feel about that heartache. But in classical music, we don't get that, and they feel the need for it. So we have building a great story for your concert or your content, because the story goes all the way into our digital lives. Choosing the right story and strengthening the story, because, as I said, we're not all storytellers. So how do we get some little tips and tricks to help us amplify our stories and be better? And the last one is a writing process, again, because not all of us are born writers and storytellers. This should also feel a little bit familiar. When you are creating the concert, you will probably write something, a description of the concert somehow. I just had a workshop with some communications people from some of the Danish orchestras a couple of weeks ago. And they were struggling sometimes because they were given a repertoire, but without any collected context for these pieces. And then they had to write some story for the website to sell. So we have to be more structured when choosing our stories. And these are types that you should be familiar with, but you can use it as a tool to get inspired of which type would fit best with this concert that we're trying to create for Caroline. So this tool is, like many of the tools, is sort of questions that you can ask yourself if you choose this is an example from the theme or the concept. So are there any current or relevant stories or facts to tell about this theme? And can you write a small fictive story? Or can you describe the thematic universe that your audiences will enter? So just little questions that will help us get into storytelling mode.
And maybe we should add to that also that we see a lot of concerts having titles that is like, we haven't done this for 5 years, now it's about time. It's not very compelling to potential audiences. They would like to have something that would resonate with their identity or their feelings or stuff like that.
A good strong why should I come?
We are closing down in 10 minutes or so, or 15 minutes or so. So the last, but at least very important tool is about hosting. We see it coming more and more into the concert rooms as well. We had 28 people around Denmark going to concerts for more like the first time. And one of the stories that traveled across, most of them were that they told me, they were interviewed very detailed about their experience. And we asked them, how did you get into the room and how was that and where did you sit and all of that? And they said, well, we came into a room and I was a bit, oh, it's a big room and we have to find our seats, and some of them had kids with them, and could they talk or couldn't they talk and all of that. And then they said, okay, then suddenly it was quiet and there was someone coming in on the stage and then they just started playing. They didn't say a word. Were we started, or what should happen, or what was the story, what was going to happen? So this kind of not being a host at a concert was very difficult for a lot of these people.
And it is a theme that runs across all of the experience. Like big 8 parents in the beginning, they could use some hosting as well.
Yeah, it's actually very important. And it's not just at the concert, actually. We also talk about digital hosts, because one of the orchestras is a member of Tutti now, and I've seen that in the UK as well, have a button on the website that says, "Are you new?" And people press that a lot. And then they get some information. They even can get help to pick their first concert, because that's actually very hard when you're not used to do that. All right, so we talked to Sanne and Ingrid here, then went to a concert together. And they said, could we please just be allowed to have some fun together. They were a bit pressured about sitting still and all of that. And they are a very good example of how much hosting means, because they were at a concert in a stable, in a horse stable, with a chamber ensemble. And afterwards, they said that there was a wonderful host. And they described him in details and how he took them through the concert. And they said, next time he appears somewhere, we'll go to that concert. So they wouldn't pick because of the music, pick the concert because of the music. They would actually pick it because he was there, because he could really tell some good stories about the music.
And make them feel safe and not so wrong in the concert hall.
In the concert hall. So it creates some fellowship. We made a lot of tools here because the orchestras felt that they needed quite a lot of tools, because it's not that they won't stand up in front of the audience and can say something about the music, but it's not just that common. So there are 5 steps of improving hosting. There's a checklist that were made on how could you do this, because it's not only in the concert room, as I said before. It can also be in the foyer area, where newcomers can be a bit nervous about how are things here and so on. And we also would have the small tool for finding your tone of voice, as we call it, and the hosting skills and hosting roles. So you can see this is a subject that most of the orchestras were quite interested in, because they really wanted to learn something here. So there's quite a lot of tools there. And we know by heart good hosting when we meet it in a restaurant or in a shop or anywhere. We feel really comfortable when we are met, when we are seen, when we are taken by the hand. And this is some of the tools that can actually help that. And don't be shy about it. You have to tell already on the homepage, or when you receive an email, once you purchase the ticket, that we can guide you. And do you want something more of this? And please remember that after the concert is the most potential place to actually sell new tickets. And you really need hosting there as well. Because I think there's a lot of surveys into this, but people are most likely to buy the next ticket just after they come out of the concert hall, and meeting a great host there saying, when will I see you again, will help quite a lot on that.
Yeah, and we had little things like every one of these new attendees asked if they had a newsletter or somewhere to follow. And they were expecting the second that they got out of the concert hall to find somewhere to sign up. And no one had a sign up outside of the concert hall.
But
so it's a hosting thing.
We did make a test, because one of the Tutti members, they performed a concert, they videotaped it, and then they said, if you want a copy of that in your mailbox, you can sign up for a newsletter outside. And that's the first time I've seen people queuing up
to sign up to
after the concert, because they really wanted to get this wonderful concert in their mailbox. So they had like 100 new sign-ups for a newsletter just in one evening. That's good hosting, actually, to help people move on together. Yes, I just want to show you one of them. It's a bit different kind of tool. It's an evaluation tool where you can, the day after or a couple of days after you have had your concert, can actually evaluate. Did we have a good host this night? Did we do the right things? Did we talk to people before and after? Did we get our message across? What was our message that night? Did we want to tell something special about ourselves? And the last 3 of them, I can reveal, have a background in radio and television. And there we are quite interested in how does the voice work when you are with people. How does the body language work? Do you kind of a bit stiff, or can you loosen up? Or what is the situation anyway? One of the orchestras invited after the concert to have a drink with the musicians. That worked pretty well. So that would be something to evaluate. Should we do this next time or what? And could we do this in this setting and so on?
And this also very much affects your brand. So if you have a voice that's very serious, very stiff, it will come across as that's who you are. And if you want to be playful or diverse or these kind of things, you have to have a voice that communicates that. So you have to actively evaluate on, does our voice fit our brand and the challenges that we have getting new audiences.
And the language as well. I remember one of our interviewees said, and then they said a lot in Italian, and I didn't know what that was about. All right, so maybe you should have translated that or told it in your own words and so on. So this is just a tool to evaluate that amongst other tools there. I think we would encourage you to just talk to the person next to you for 3 minutes, let's say that, and talk about, are there any of these tools who are relevant for us, or is there any one of them I am doing myself? Have we tools like this or other things? So please just take 3 minutes, talk to someone close to you or move a little closer to someone and talk about, are these tools relevant, or is there a tool that we really miss here? Please. All right, I think that the 3 minutes are up. It's good to hear that you're talking to one another. All right, we will have to finish this off, and then we have time for some questions.
Yeah, obviously we didn't make it through all of the tools, and I hope just a little taste that you got gave you an idea or two that you can go home and try out. And if you want more, then the book will come out in English with all the tools. And we also wanted to say that we couldn't fit everything in here, so all the digital marketing tools and all the data collection tools that that's in the book isn't here either. So the data collection tool would obviously give content for you to discuss in some of these tools, other tools. But we would like to take questions, or maybe something you felt that you're doing already, some of these things, or something you have been thinking about, or questions about our research, if you have any.
So, hi, my name is Clara, and I'm a violinist. I'm a classical violinist. And I wanted to ask you, because you said that it's so important to choose an audience that you want to target. And I live in Germany, and in Germany, like the conservative traditional market is still quite strong. So with organizing a concert or a concert series, I would ideally want to attract both the traditional older audience, but at the same time, I would want to attract younger audiences. So what would you advise, and how does that respond to when you said that it's good to choose one type of audience or a specific person?
Yeah, I think that classical, like core audiences, the ones that we talked to, we had a few focus groups, those as well. They usually come even though it's made for someone else. I had a talk with Manchester Collective.
They are hard people to kick out of the
Manchester Collective created a concert in a brewery that was created for new audiences. And there was hard chairs and everything that core audiences is going to complain about. And they did, but they still came because it's something new that they already love. So it's this idea that I'm getting something in the niche that I love, but with something a little spicy extra.
And maybe also you can actually communicate a little bit different about the same concert, really. But what we did find out about core audiences is that when you kind of use this wheel and say, come for a romantic evening, they can get a little upset.
Yeah, they get annoyed.
That. Yeah.
Yeah. But like you said, it's possible to, and it's harder work, because then you have to create two different kind of communication strands. You have to create the one that the new audiences are attracted to, and then the core audiences. But we're testing videos right now, social media videos. And we tested a very severe one, talking in the orchestra hall about the concert, giving all the useful information. And we tested a handheld one in his own house, just talking. And core audiences love the
They
loose
love both
one.
of them.
Yeah, they love both of them. Yeah, to be honest.
And also the funny stuff. So,
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think we don't have to be so scared to scare away these core audiences. They're very loud when they don't like something, but they will still come.
Yeah. There's another question up there. Okay. It's very hard to see you when the light's down here.
Thank you very much for this presentation. Really enjoyed it. I was wondering, in your research or in your focus group, have you ever encountered the issue of decision fatigue among the focus groups? Like, for example, that there are too many options and they don't choose anything and opt for Netflix or the cinema or a sports event instead of a concert.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we're testing programming pages right now. So the actual website page where there's the whole program on and titles and pictures, nothing else. So not the concert description, but the program page. And core audiences don't really have a difficulty choosing. They kind of know what they want. And sometimes they want most of it. But new audiences, they get fatigued like 2 seconds into watching that program, sadly. They look at it and like, okay.
And that is why this compass is a really good thing, because it's easier for them to choose if it's another way of talking about.
Yeah, we had a test of a physical program, and the core audiences chose the one that wasn't traditionally classical, because it was like, again, extra spice to what they were used to.
Yeah.
And the new audiences chose the only concert who had a concept theme, which was like, it was called the Landscape of Dreams.
Landscape of Dreams, yes. I'll take that one.
And the marketing person was a little bit nervous because it wasn't a concept. It was the name of a piece.
Of the piece.
And he knew it had nothing to do with the things that audiences immediately thought of.
No. But they liked the title.
Yeah.
Did you have another question or no?
Thanks. Thanks for that. Another maybe follow up to that. Is there enough marketing effort or marketing spent in classical music, or again, are there too many small issues which are being addressed, and sometimes institutions lose sight of the greater good, so to say? Or would it be easier if productions were marketed like, a Taylor Swift tour, like single focus on one thing for like 2 years, instead of like every week another subscription program with no marketing time at all? Conductors, soloists, they arrive 2 days before the performance. There's literally not so much you can do in like 2 days to produce for social media and stuff.
That's why we put so much focus on brand, because orchestras don't make enough branding content, which is we brand not ourselves, but the kind of experience that we have in general. So we have one of the Danish orchestras did choose a new brand. It's an inspirational brand. So their brand is going to be, our music inspires you to do the things that you like. So it's not about whatever the music interprets. It's what you get out of coming to our concerts is inspiration for something in your life. And it could be for business people wanting to be more effective, or it could be for people who read to be inspired to escape into their favorite novel. But the point of this is they want to create new marketing material that focuses on inspiration. So we create content not to sell the concert, but to sell content that's entertaining and inspiring to watch, so that we're actually delivering on our brand as an inspiration brand. Which means that we are not, I think the answer is that we are not focusing enough on making marketing content that is enjoyable in other ways than just salesy.
And I would like to add that initially, I guess you're right. You should tell more stories. There should be more resources at telling stories, because it's really, really very, very important for these first timers. And the people who work with branding and communication and PR should be within the process from the beginning all the way through, because that's and you can engage everyone in the orchestra. I mean, there's lots of musicians are very good storytellers, so why not engage them in this work as well? So I think that more people in the organizations need to be engaged in this storytelling
Programming
as well.
also.
And
Yeah, because we see that the program becomes more audience friendly if you include more different skills in your programming group. I'm not sure how you program, but in Denmark, some has like a group of people that attends these programming meetings and help get ideas and everything. And we need like marketing people in that room to help create the stories from the beginning and to help shape stories for the concerts, because they are good at that. They have that storytelling skill that maybe they can contribute to programming.
A long answer.
Yeah.
Sorry. We have to finish now.
Yeah.
All right. Would you finish off, Cecilie?
Yeah, I just want to thank you all for coming. It's been a long project, so it's really wonderful to be able to share it with you. And if you're curious about more, then just tap us on the shoulders. We love to talk to you about anything you might be interested in.